today. I go right now. What I'll do is pick up a report. I have a copy for that. Recall what was done today, just a key minutes. Jot it down. Try to recall as much as possible. Write it down. Without looking. Let it be like let it be random, let it be scribbly, whatever. But then just write it down. And then what you can do is refer. Then actually keep your notes. Whether you write them, put it off, put the same thing into the short list. That's much better. We kind of can remember. So how was the goal for you? Cool.
So today we are going to discuss about the current affairs related news that is related to geography and internal security. Now the first news is related to the mourning in the mountain. Mourning means, as you can see, a kind of sadness we have seen spreading along the mountains, especially in the eastern Himalayas. We have witnessed one of the large scale landslides that was caused by rainfall and other phenomena and other, basically we can say, factors as such, and this occurred in the West Bengal, where you have a district called as Darjeeling. So what are the causes behind this disaster? What is the impact that we are seeing because of this disaster? And also we'll try to have understanding that how we can grapple with such kind of disasters in future as such. So first of all, to give you an idea about where this disaster has struck. So if you look here, this is the upper part of India, where you have, this is the state of Sikkim, and to the south of Sikkim, this is the state of West Bengal. Somewhere along the border of Sikkim and West Bengal, you have a region that is referred as Darjeeling. Darjeeling also is known as one of the major hill stations in eastern India and attracts thousands and thousands of tourists every month as such. Now, it is in this area we have seen the disasters taking place. So, first of all, the reason why landslides have occurred here. We know that when we talk about landslide, it means large scale movement or mass movement of rock, debris, soil, and also water, many times at a fast speed in the downward direction due to the gravitational force as such. And this also get compounded because in the Himalayas, we know that especially the southern part of Himalayas are having very steep slope, because if you try to understand, Himalayas have formed due to continental convergence between Indian plate and Eurasian plate. So as the Indian plate keep on pushing toward the Eurasian plate, it causes the sediments and rocks to rise up. So this slope, that is the southern slope where where landslide has occurred, is very steep. And also whenever you have very heavy rainfall during the monsoon times, the slope, soil, debris all get basically unstable in nature, and it becomes easier for them to fall under the influence of gravity. Overall, also Himalayas is an example of young fold mountain. That means it is still in the stage of development, because still the convergence between Indian plate and Eurasian plate has not stopped. Indian plate still is pushing against Eurasian plate at the rate of about 4.5 centimeter every year. So Himalaya is continuously rising, and thus it is unstable, and that is why the probability of landslide also become high. Apart from that, effect also seems to be amplified, and one of the reason is because in these regions of the Himalayas, especially Darjeeling region and all that, because elevation is relatively less, you will find high population density, and the population is not only in the valley region, but also it is settled along the slopes, and that is why these people who have settled along the slope become vulnerable whenever landslide like disaster occurs. Also, this area witnesses flow of multiple rivers that further compound the problem, and these are rivers such as Tista, Rangeet and Balason, which further flow southward toward Bangladesh. Now, if you look at the natural factors that might have contributed to the landslide, first factor obviously is the intense monsoon rainfall, because you know that in India, somewhere between June to September is the major month where we have monsoon rainfall, and especially in the West Bengal, which is closer to Bay of Bengal, there is large extent of moisture laden winds entering and causing precipitation here. Now, due to continuous heavy rainfall, the soil that is present in the mountains, they get saturated, and when they get saturated, it results into the failure of slope, and it is a failure of slope that we see manifesting in the form of landslides. Now, also this area in the future can witness landslides not only because of rainfall but because of the earthquake as well, because if you talk about the entire eastern Himalayas, it lies in the zone 4 as far as the seismic zone is concerned. That means it has a high probability of earthquake, it lies in high earthquake risk zone as such. Plus the rocks also, you try to look at in the Himalayas, the rocks are largely of two types. In the upper part you have sedimentary rock, and the lower part you have metamorphic rock. Sedimentary rock is very weak, and that is why it is prone to be carried forward by the flowing water, whether it is rainwater or river water. Not only that, even during the heavy rainfall time, metamorphic rocks that provide base or stability to the sedimentary rocks, they are prone to weathering and erosion as well, and that further amplify the problem of landslides. Not only that, due to continuous inhabitation in these areas, we have seen a massive deforestation taking place in the recent year, where large scale degradation and cutting of trees and forest is going on. And this also becomes very important and critical, because it is the trees' roots that bind the soil properly with the ground. So if you are cutting the trees, you are making soil more prone to basically get saturated and start to flow in the downward direction. So that is the reason why we can understand that landslides have occurred here. Apart from that, human factors also we have to blame, because if you talk about the anthropogenic factors, road cutting, tunneling, National Highway 10 is passing through this certain area, this particular area, rail project had been commissioned, and all this require basically again same thing, deforestation, cutting along the slope that makes mountain further unstable. Again, to remind you, mountains are already naturally unstable because they are young fold mountain, they still are rising, and then further in the unstable mountain you are creating extra instability by developing projects such as roadways, railways and all other kind of projects. Plus, many times unplanned urbanization also has to be blamed, because when the urbanization is taking place without any proper prior approval and all, prior approvals and all, and without taking proper permit and this regulations, in that case there is a this proper, we can say, region why the slopes can fail or the why landslides can be seen. Tea plantation is also expanding, that is other additional factor. Plus we have drainage mismanagement. Now drainage mismanagement is something that is very interesting to understand, because suppose that from the Himalayas you have river that is flowing in the downward direction toward the slope. So because of the unplanned construction, many times what happens, the channel through which water should generally flow, that is occupied by the projects, occupied by buildings, occupied by infrastructure, and suddenly suppose when you have very heavy rainfall, the water level in the river will rise up, river will swell, and then it would try to go through its original channel. But now this original channel is no longer available, as it is in the channel where construction has taken place, infrastructure development has taken place. Thus, water has nowhere to flow. It causes flood-like tendencies in the river, and when the flood-like tendency occur in the river, especially along the unstable slope, it causes large volume of soil and the debris to get saturated, and then it results finally or ultimately in the landslide as such. Now, as far as the vulnerability of India is concerned, its mountainous area specifically, we talk about in northern part, entire Himalayas from Jammu and Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh, and in the southern part throughout the entire Western Ghat, right from Goa till Tamil Nadu, is vulnerable to landslides. That means if you look at the entire area of India, out of 0.32 million square kilometer, 13% of its area is prone to landslides. Also in the state-wise, if you look, 15 states and 4 union territories of India are vulnerable as far as the landslide is concerned. 42% of the northeastern region is vulnerable to landslides, because majority of northeastern region is having Himalayan mountain and its extension like Purvanchal as such. Now, we also have to geographically understand that how do we categorize landslide. So first term that we use is a type of landslide when we call term as debris flow or mud flow. So when we have heavy rainfall, as we discussed, water soaked debris suddenly slides in a downslope direction. When this is the case, we call such kind of landslides as debris flow or mud flow. Second is along the steep cliffs, simply because the slope is unstable in nature, the gravitational force is very strong, and due to suppose change in temperature, there is a weathering taking place in the rocks, and due to this weathered rocks, the rock fragments become loose and they fall under the influence of gravity. This is what we call as rock fall. Third type of landslide is something that we call as slump or rotational slides as such. This is the case when you have a mountain slope like this, an entire, we talk about this particular slope of the mountain where you have the accumulation of mud, rocks, debris, soil particles and all that, it began to move in the downward direction, but the movement is in such a way that it seems that it is flowing in kind of rotational motion. That means this part will slide down, this part will go up. So it kind of rotational motion occurs here, slump kind of motion we see here. This kind of motion is what we call as slump flow or rotational flow. Then we have translational slides where you have shallow movement along the bedding plane. Bedding plane means you have multiple rock beds along a mountain, and along this plane, suppose that the joint between this particular part of rock and this particular section of rock, when it weakens, the upper rock will start to slide, and this is what we call as translational slide as such. Last is complex landslide. That is nothing but when you have multiple factors acting at the same time, resulting into more than one type of flow. That is when we can call it as a complex landslide. Now the question is that what are the way forward, how we can be prepared or better prepared if such kind of phenomena or events take place in future. So we have to ensure that the soil is not loose, debris is not loose, and that we can ensure by focusing upon afforestation. If you plant more and more trees, the root of trees will bind the soil particles strongly to the surface, and even in the case of heavy rainfall, first of all, trees themselves will reduce the intensity of rainwater, and second also because the soil particles are bound strongly to the ground surface, the landslide probability can be further weakened. Slope stabilization measures we have to take into consideration as well. We have done that in many areas. So in any part where we have the probability of landslide, such measures should be ensured. We have to have a proper ban or adequate ban on hill cutting, and we have to ensure that construction is only taking place after it has got the prior approval, authorization after the geological study of that particular area. Third, we have to ensure that wherever you have the river flowing through the mountainous area, hilly terrain, proper drainage and slope engineering work is also conducted. In last, we can understand that landslide is something that is unavoidable because of the geographical terrain, but several measures and the steps we can take to ensure that its impact can be minimized at least on the people, and the loss of life can be also avoided as such. Second topic is related to a new research station that India is planning to open soon in the Antarctica. This station will be referred as MAP32. Now, if you look at first of all the map of Antarctica, this is the map, this is South Pole. So if I draw a straight line passing through the South Pole, we divide Antarctica into two parts. One is the West Antarctica, and this side we have the East Antarctica. In the East Antarctica, there is an oasis called as Schermacker Oasis, as you can see from here, and it is in this area where India has planned to construct its second station called as MAP3. The other station, MAP32, the other station is MAP3, that is MAP31 we can say. It has already been operational since 1989, and this MAP3, old MAP3 station is also located in the same area. So the new station will also be opened very close to where the old station is. The reason behind opening of new research station is because, as we have seen, the MAP3 first is operational since a long period of time, and that is why its infrastructure is kind of old, it is aging in nature, plus there is an issue in maintaining the earlier research station or older research station as well, that also causes a lot of inconveniences, and that is why government has decided to replace the old station with completely new station MAP32, and the site already has been identified. Now, apart from that, also if you look at the key facts, so first of all, location we have discussed. Now, when this MAP32 will become operational, the government has given a timeline that by January 2029, MAP32 should become operational, and it will have a capacity to host 90 scientists at a time. Apart from that, support staff that is required for conducting research and such. The entire cost of project is believed to be somewhere about 1,250 crore approximately, and global design competition was announced in July 2024. Under this design competition, finally government has selected that how and who will construct this particular project as such. It has a huge scientific importance because Antarctica is a place where it has drawn researchers from all across the world, including India. The reason is because Antarctica, as you know, is covered with a thick sheet of ice, and especially people or scientists who are involved in a glacial, this what you can call as glacial exploration, glaciology, ice sheet dynamics. For them, it is a kind of heaven because a lot of information they can get from here, which is otherwise not possible to be obtained from other part of the world. Second, to understand also the effect of climate change and how atmosphere, ocean is interacting, how the effect of atmosphere is being seen on lithosphere, also Antarctica plays a very important role. Not only that, it will also important from geological perspective because you know that long time ago India was attached with Gondwana land or was a part of Gondwana land, which also included Antarctica. So somewhere millions of years ago India is split from Gondwana land. That means India split from Antarctica, drifted further north and collided with Eurasia. So that also is something that we'll be able to understand by looking and examining the samples from Antarctica as such. Now, though Antarctica seems as a cold desert, it is not always the case. Especially around the Matri station, we have certain freshwater lakes as well. For example, Lake Priyadarshini. And what kind of biodiversity, what kind of animal life you'll find in these kind of terrain, this kind of environment. To understand this also, we have to have a dependency on a new research station. Overall, also India will be able to properly abide by and work as per the Antarctic Treaty System because as you know, the Antarctica does not belong exclusively to any one particular country. It is considered as a common heritage of mankind. That means it is commonly belong to the entire world as such, and that is why it's overall we can say the activities that you can do and that is permitted in Antarctica is based on the global treaty, that is Antarctica Treaty as such. So Indian contributions, marine studies and all that obviously will be important. Now apart from that also we have to understand that it has geopolitical importance as well. For example, India's continuity in Antarctic presence is something that will be able to ensure by creating a new research station. Till now, if we talk about, India has constructed several research stations such as Dakshin Gangotri, then we have Bharti, then we have Matri. Dakshin Gangotri is no longer functional, but Bharti and Matri, these two stations are still functional. Matri will be replaced by this new station. Also, it will ensure that India is able to properly follow polar diplomacy. It is an example of projection of soft power of India, and also it basically showcases the world the ability that Indian scientists have and the Indian what we can call as scientific community has collectively to carry out research in the cold extreme environment of Antarctica. Not only that, because Antarctica is surrounded by Southern Ocean from all the sides, it also will be helpful in conducting research in the maritime environment, ocean environment. Plus, it will also give impetus to the blue economy, the vision that Government of India has unveiled, which will be supported. Plus, it will also be helpful in monitoring of exclusive economic zone. It overall enhances the role in multilateral polar government. And this is also interesting to understand because we have two poles, North Pole, South Pole. Around North Pole, you have Arctic region, but Arctic region is largely controlled by a group of countries which are having border there. So Antarctica is the only neutral place where India can conduct research without having any kind of problems, without having any kind of dispute as such. Apart from that, if you talk about the institutions which will play a significant role here, you are going to have a National Center for Polar and Ocean Research. It has been declared as a nodal agency to carry out all kind of expedition in Antarctica and even what you can call as oversee the research activities there. Legal framework is, as we have discussed, India passed an India Antarctic Act as per the provisions of Antarctic Treaty. And international treaties such as Antarctic Treaty System, Madrid Protocol, which ensures that in Antarctica, whichever countries are operating research bases, they do so ensuring peaceful and scientific use of the area of the territory. That is also India has adhered to till now and will keep on adhering to in the future as well. Infrastructure, obviously, because we have focused here on Make in India. So all the entire infrastructure, the machines, the components that will be able to put there in the Matri second research station, it will be generally developed in India itself. It will be indigenous in nature. International research and cross-sectional logistics is also something where we have cooperated earlier, and it is going to be continued in the coming days as well. Now, there obviously is a challenge because you know that Antarctica is a region where we have a cold and extreme temperatures, extremely cold temperature, and that creates logistic difficulties, especially during the winter season. Wind and storm becomes so stronger there that people who are trapped in Antarctica, people who are living this, for example, scientists who are living in Antarctica, they might not get any kind of help. So it is a complete a lack of any kind of transportation and communication as such. So this is something that we have to also keep into account. Now there is also this focus on complying with the environmental norms. So while conducting research, you can create a lot of waste. So management of waste should be done in such a manner that it does not harm the ecology and environment of Antarctica, and that is why environmental protocol compliance becomes key part that makes it challenging to carry out research as well, and that is something that also will be a challenge for the scientists there. Infrastructure modernization, as we have discussed, is required because as the speed and the level of technology keeps on changing, the research, what you can call as the level of research also keeps on changing, keeps on increasing, and that is why modernization effort is required. Overall funding, project timeline adherence is something that also we have to keep in account, because for now we have decided that by 2029, we have projected actually that by January 2029 we will be able to make this research based operational in nature. However, whether it will be actually done or not, we have to wait and see. Antarctic research I discussed, project cost is 1,250 crore, 90 scientists and support staff can be accommodated here. Two stations that are currently operational, I told you, one is to the eastern side, that is Bharati, and one is to the northern side, that is Math. The third topic is related to Tomahawk cruise missiles. Recently, we have seen in the news when the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, went to meet Donald Trump, there was a probability that Donald Trump would grant Ukraine Tomahawk cruise missile, which it can use to target the in the Russia as such. So this is something that is interesting. So now what is Tomahawk? First of all, if you try to understand, Tomahawk is nothing but an example of a cruise missile. And what kind of cruise missile? If you look here, it is jet powered. That means it can be launched by a fighter jet, and it is subsonic cruise missile. Now subsonic means the velocity of the missile is less than the velocity or speed of sound as such. So whenever any object travels at a speed less than sound's speed, you can call its speed as subsonic nature. So it is jet powered, that means you can launch this missile by fighter jet. Subsonic, that means missile travels at a rate lesser than or slower than the speed of sound. And third, it is example of a cruise missile. Cruise missile means it does not go outside of the atmosphere, it remains within atmosphere, and its overall trajectory is controlled by a computer that is fitted inside the missile as well. So basically you can say it has in-flight direction and overall target control as such. So it can be used for land attack as well as maritime variant is also in operation. It is designed for long range, more than 1,000 kilometers of long range this missile has. It is known for its precision. If you talk about and compare with the other set of missiles that you have called as ICBM, that is Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, ICBM have much more longer range, but precision wise they are less precise. Cruise missiles such as Tomahawk cruise missile has relatively shorter range, but they are more precise in nature. Apart from that, they also have an advantage that they can fly at a very low altitude. We can say kind of terrain hugging kind of flight they show to avoid detection by radars as such, and it is currently being deployed by US Navy and other allied navies such as UK and Australia as well. Now if you look at the Tomahawk cruise missile and the specification of this missile, if you take a look, it is about 18 to 20 feet long, weighing somewhere between 2,900 to 3,300 pounds. It depends on the variant because you have multiple variants, what kind of boosters are attached to it, that also you have to take into consideration. Speed already have discussed, that is subsonic. Now one term that you see here is Mach 0.7 to 0.8. That is how we categorize the speed of Tomahawk cruise missile. So what is 0.7, 0.8 and Mach? Mach refer to the speed of sound. That means Tomahawk cruise missile fly at a speed of 70 to 80% to that of speed of sound as such. Range, as we have discussed, commonly is about 1,500 plus kilometer. Depending on variant, which is in development as well, the range can further increase or decrease. The key features of this missile, obviously, as we have discussed, it is easier for this missile to avoid any kind of detection as compared to ICBM, obviously, is because they can fly very close to the ground. So it is referred as terrain hugging flight capability. Apart from that, GPS inertial navigation guidance missile keeps on getting continuously. So it means that during the flight itself, its target can be changed, its target can be set, and precision can be ensured. So that is the second thing. Third thing is that missile, interestingly, is capable of carrying multiple type of warhead. It carry conventional warhead as well as even nuclear warhead as such, that make this missile very deadly in nature. Launch platforms are, again, it can be launched by ship, it can be launched by submarines, as well as the variant is being developed where it can be launched from the land itself. Now interestingly, if you talk about the accuracy of this missile, it is believed to be less than 10 meter. We are talking about CEP, that is a circular efficiency program. So if we talk about circular efficiency probability, that means suppose that your target is here and you want to destroy this target by launching a Tomahawk cruise missile. So what is the probability that Tomahawk cruise missile will strike in this particular target, strike to this particular target? That is the probability we are talking about, that if target is here, there is a high probability, or we can say extremely high probability, that Tomahawk cruise missile will actually collide somewhere within the 10-meter range of the target, and because the explosion is so humongous that anything that is within a 10-meter range will obviously be destroyed as such. So that is why very precise in nature. Range is 1600 kilometers, already we have discussed. That is how we can understand the features of this missile. India also has several cruise missile, and the most or the major one, most famous one is something that we can call as BrahMos, which is example of cruise missile. Now, apart from that, several variants are being developed and has been in use also, such as Tomahawk Block 4, which is network enabled, and it also has capability to be to actually change its target in mid-flight. That means we are using the term here retargetable. For example, suppose when you send this missile, you wanted to strike this particular target, but due to certain reasons, after few minutes, you realize that it is better to actually target this second target. So in the mid-flight itself, you can change the target of the missile. So rather than attacking this, it will go and strike the second or new target as such. Again, Tomahawk Block 5 has advanced navigation, as well as it is fitted with upgraded engine. Then it has CD version as well, that means conventional land attack missiles also are being developed. Anti-ship version is being under development, and also missile has ability to be integrated with the Aegis combat system. Aegis combat system is nothing but a kind of example of network warfare, where several computer or interconnected computer networks are being used to determine the target and overall control the flight path of the missile as well. It has huge strategic significance because it enhances long-range strike capability of any navy or any air force that uses such kind of missile. It acts as a deterrence weapons, especially for US, especially in the Indo-Pacific region, where it has to tackle several threats. For example, talking about North Korea, we're talking about China, we're talking about Russia as such. It overall boosts maritime dominance and complements US and allied naval power. Tomahawk cruise missile has been used many times before whenever US has participated in a large scale war. For example, in the Iraq war, we have seen use of Tomahawk cruise missile. In the Libya war, Syria, and even before in Afghanistan, when US were searching for US forces were searching for Osama bin Laden, and they knew that Osama bin Laden is somewhere hiding in the mountains of Tora Bora, we have seen multiple uses of Tomahawk cruise missile with the probability of hitting the place or hideout of the bin Laden as such. Now, summary, we can understand that it is a long-range, precise strike weapon as such. It can be launched from sea, from surface ships, submarines, as well as fighter jet. It is flying at a subsonic rate in the lower altitude and is guided by GPS. Plus, it has continuously evolved through block upgrade, and that makes it one of the deadliest missile that we have in the world. Third news is related to the indigenous development of parachute system that is done by Defense Research Development Organization under the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission as such. Now, it is for the first time India has designed an indigenous parachute system that is able to be operational beyond 26,000 feet in the air. So it is high altitude jump capability. It has high altitude jump capability, as we discussed, 26,000 feet, more than 26,000 feet. And in the trial run, actually, we have conducted trial at the height of 35,000 feet as such. Second, it is automatic, and it has automatic as well as manual deployment feature. Third, it has low drag and high stability canopy. The design of parachute is such that the drag rate is less, and that is why it makes it more efficient, and also the landing can be ensured to be more precise in nature. Third, it is lightweight and has compact design, and it is adaptable to diverse terrain as such. That means a soldier can jump in various different type of terrain if he is using this particular type of parachute. If you look at the technical specification of this parachute, overall the diameter of the canopy that I'm talking about is somewhere about 35 feet, which is very large and provides adequate support and protection to the jumper. Second, it has a load capacity of 160 kilograms, and descent rate is very precise, and something that we can call as a slow descent rate that ensures safety of the jumper. So if you talk about the descent rate, it is 5 meters per second, which is within the safe margin. Overall material that is used by DRDO to construct this parachute is a kind of composite material which is made up of advanced nylon as well as Kevlar material as such. So that's what makes this parachute very interesting in nature. overall it also has a strategic significance because it boosts the capability of special forces. Special forces, as you know, many times they have to enter into the Indian territory to carry out precise strikes, and in that case you have to have the manual deployment of the manpower, deployment of the forces, and especially if you are sending these forces through aircraft, they will have to many times jump on the land to ensure that the target is properly neutralized. So in that case it will boost their capability as such, especially you're talking about the para commandos of Indian Army. Second, it will reduce the dependency on import as well. Till now, for most of the cases, parachute were largely imported from some third countries, and because of the reduction in import dependency and our capability to produce it in number as much as we want, it enhances quick deployment in the border zones as well. It increases survivability and accuracy of the parachute, and it supports overall Make in India initiative or Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative that Government of India has tried to encourage, especially in the defense sector, and many good this example and result of it we are seeing in the recent time. Now, development agency we have discussed is the Defense Research Development Organization, and it is developing this parachute in the collaboration with the Indian Army by looking at and understanding their demand, their concerns, plus Indian Air Force operational inputs also are being taken here, because no matter whether it is Indian Army or whether it is Indian naval persons or Indian Air Force person, they have to be airborne so that they can jump. So that is the thing here. Apart from that, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and Bharat Electric Limited also have manufacturing tie-ups with the DRDO, and overall the quality certificate is provided to it by the DGQA. Apart from that also, if you have to understand about this, the testing and validation was quite successful. Drop test for this particular parachute was conducted in two regions. One in the Agra, that is the what we can call as the area with normal elevation, and second was Leh, to look at its viability in the mountainous areas. In both of the cases, the parachute has proved its efficacy, and live trial with paratroopers were conducted, which was largely successful. And based on this result, what we can say is that parachute can be considered as an all-weather and all-terrain parachute. That means it can be deployed in no matter which kind of weather you have, cloudy weather, rainy weather, stormy weather, and all terrain means it does not matter what elevation you are jumping from, the missile will, basically parachute will be useful there. Successful user assisted evaluations have been conducted, and now because we have confidence in this parachute, it has been approved by government for mass production, and then it can be used by the Indian security forces. The next and the last topic we have is related to the gas emission intensity target rule that Government of India unveiled in the recent time. Now, this particular rule is something that was drafted and notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The entire rule is referred as Greenhouse Gas Emission Intensity, or also referred as GEI Target Rules 2025. Baseline year taken is 23-24, and compliance period is 25-26 and 26-27. That means next 2 years, at least for now. Later on, obviously, it will be extended. The entire rule is nothing but a part of carbon credit trading scheme. Now, what is this scheme and what are its framework? We'll try to understand this as well. Now, first of all, what is the scope of this rule? Now, the rule is as clear from the name itself, is to ensure that every industry, every manufacturing unit is given a target that they cannot have more than this particular extent of emission. For example, you talk about sectors which are polluting sector, which produces large amount of greenhouse gases such as CO2, methane and all, like aluminium, cement, chloralkali, pulp and paper. They have been given a kind of what you can call as a target, and currently 282 manufacturing units have been brought under this rule initially. Emission type that covers is carbon dioxide and any equivalent gases, that is of CO2, fluorinated gases such as CF4, C2F6 and all that, and unit level intensity targets have been provided. That means for every ton of, for example, aluminium that you produce, you can only emit certain tons of carbon dioxide. So that is why here focused is on ton of carbon dioxide emission per unit of output. Here the focus is to cover big corporates, which are the big manufacturing industries of India, plants of India, such as Vedanta, then you have JSW Cement, then you have Grasim Industries. So the effort is to ensure that these industries are brought in under the framework so that the greenhouse gas emission from India can be minimized to the extent that is possible. Key features, if you try to understand here, is that of GEI. If you look at the definition here, many times there is a confusion. So we have greenhouse gas emission intensity. What basically it means? It simply means that how many tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per unit of equivalent output you are allowed to produce. For example, if you are producing, suppose 1 tons of cement, suppose that a company produces 1 ton of cement. So for production of this 1 ton of cement, how much maximum amount of carbon dioxide equivalent gas they're able to emit, that is what we are calling it GEI. So we are trying to reduce this number so that the companies are able to take steps in the right direction and are able to incorporate technology which can be considered as environment friendly in nature. Now, the most important thing is that it is not a voluntary compliance, this rule, but rather it is a legal binding. That means the target which is given to each of the manufacturing unit and industries, it has to be obliged, and in the case of non-compliance, there is a provision of penalty that also has been brought in this particular rule as such. Suppose that if you talk about compliance, it will be via carbon credit certificate. Now let us try to understand it in a simple way. Suppose that we have two industries, one is, let us say, A, other industry or manufacturing unit you have is B. Suppose that they are allowed, based on their production, they are allowed that only they can emit 100 tons of carbon dioxide per month. Similarly, B's production capacity also ensures that they are also able to produce only 100 tons of carbon dioxide per month as such. Now, A was able to not only comply, but they have only emitted 100 tons of carbon dioxide. Let us suppose that they had a quota, or they had the possibility that they can emit 100 tons of carbon dioxide, but they just emitted 180 tons of carbon dioxide. On the other hand, company B has exceeded its quota and it has emitted 120 tons of carbon dioxide per month. So obviously, this is the case of non-compliance. So in that means that it will have to pay penalty. And how it will pay penalty? So now, because this particular company has only emitted 80 tons of carbon dioxide, it has 20 tons, it will be given as a carbon credit, which this company can sell to company B, and by this it will ensure that good behavior is being rewarded while bad behavior is being punished as such. This is something that we call as carbon credit mechanism or carbon credit certificate mechanism as such. And this is something that also has been included in the penalty clause, where environmental compensation will be paid in twice of average credit price. That means this particular company will not only pay the amount or the price of only 20 carbon credit, but they will pay twice the amount at which the carbon credit or carbon credit certificate is being traded in the market as such. The monitoring of this entire rules and its enforcement will be done by two major agencies. One, you have the Central Pollution Control Board, and other is the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, that will be responsible for this what you call as issuing of carbon certificates here. The rationale and objective of this entire rule is to ensure that India complies with and adhere to the Paris Agreement, where it has decided that by year 2030, it will reduce its greenhouse gas emission intensity by 45% compared to the year 2005. And this is the step taken in that particular direction itself. Second, also witness industrial shift, where you might see a shift from high emission industries to low carbon growth path, which is very, very important. And also it shows responsible behavior by India, that it is not only talking about climate change and its effect and the things to do about it, but also it is walking the talk. Technology wise, also it will promote clean and energy efficient technology, which in the long term prospects will also boost the growth in India as such. Carbon market will also be able to flourish because of the compensation and the penalty rules that has been imposed here. And overall, it is an attempt by government to balance both industrial growth and at the same time ensure that the growth that we are witnessing in the manufacturing sector is also environmentally sustainable in nature as such. Now, obviously, government will have to face challenges, that is as is seen in many of the rules and laws that government brings in. And the first challenge that it will have to face is in the context of data availability. That means which units are producing and emitting how much tons of carbon dioxide. Measuring it is a big challenge, a big task, and not only measuring it, but having a proper and adequate measurement is something that many times becomes quite challenging in nature. Second, obviously, if any industry is shifting from what we call as the high emission technology to low emission technology, this cost will be borne by consumers as well, because this will have to this will lead to upgradation of technology or bringing in new types of production methods and all that. Third, it will also have to take into account market volatility. That means the pricing of the carbon credit is something that will have to be regulated as well. Carbon leakage is something that we might see as well. For example, industries, rather than producing in India, it might shift its production base to some third country to avoid any kind of penalty and compliance burden as such. Enforcement becomes very critical here because we have brought so many rules in the past related to various different spheres of life. The problem is not the rules. We have many laws which are very, very good, which looks very good actually on the paper, but when it comes to enforcement, we have seen poor or weak enforcement. So this is something that we'll have to ensure that we do not fall prey to the same problem again. And then obviously it will set a right path for India. Implications, obviously you have humongous implications. First of all, it will ensure enhanced domestic carbon market and trading ecosystem, which is existing in India as well. For example, we have perform achieve trade or PAT system, but that is not that developed. So this will further ensure that there is a more and more addition and there is a more and more circulation of such kind of carbon credit. Green investment will be attracted by India as well because many of the industries, they will comply with this environmental safety norms, and thus this is also something that we can see in the form of increased investment. Climate diplomacy, also India will be able to portray itself as not only a country which talks about it, but a country which is willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that the effect of climate change on the entire humanity, on the entire earth can be reduced as such. And thus, by taking certain measures, by taking such kind of measures, actually, India obviously raises its stance, raises its role, and it may be invited to play a bigger role in global climate diplomacy and overall a low carbon leadership. One example of this already we are seeing as India, along with France, is heading the International Solar Alliance. So similar kind of roles India will have to play actually in the future as well. Competitiveness will also increase because industrial competitiveness depends on cost, innovation and all that. So industries which will not be able to compete, which will not be able to basically comply with these norms, they will become outdated and they will be replaced by more efficient industries, and that is also good for the overall economy as such. Plus sectoral shift we will see from heavy industry decarbonization to more of a circular economy like nature. Now overall, this entire effort is nothing but a step taken in the direction of climate action, where we are trying to balance industrial growth and environmental sustainability at the same time, and it will be able to also help us in the development of proper carbon credit trading scheme 2023 or CCTS framework that we have discussed before. Now again, if you take a look at the importance of each of these particular topics, so first of all, the first topic was mountains bond, where you talk about the landslides in the Darjeeling. This is very important topic because it is directly linked to your syllabus, where you have disaster management in GS3, you have climatology in GS1, in part of geography as such, and also from mapping perspective, because Himalayas you have to study in the physiography of India as well. So learning of concepts plus regions behind landslides, how we can take measures to control landslides, how we can prepare ourselves to face such disasters, and these all are very, very important from both prelims and mains perspective. That is why we can say it is most important, and that is why we have given 5 stars as such. Second topic was MAP 32 research station in Antarctica. This is also very, very important topic because India has many times UPSC in previous years also have asked direct question related to research stations of India in the North Pole regions, South Pole regions and all that. So we have to largely remember pre-based fact here, plus this you can use as a pointer also when a question is asked about India's scientific capabilities, India's technological capability, research capabilities and all that. And as far as India's Antarctic research is concerned, you can obviously add pointer from this particular mission as this particular station as well. Third was related to Tomahawk cruise missile. Now because this missile is not Indian missile, it was developed by US and India does not use it that much, and actually does not use it at all. So that is why it is not that important from examination, but from pre-perspective, many times they keep asking questions if such kind of topic are in use. For example, HIMARS, a few years back, UPSC has asked about HIMARS. That is again air defense system used by US as such. India does not use it. So you have to have basic information from science and technology perspective also. Question can be asked about the different types of missiles such as intercontinental ballistic missile, cruise missiles and all that. Next topic was indigenous parachute. Again, not that important, but you just have to keep this in mind that recently DRDO has developed indigenous parachute. You can use this as a pointer if you're talking in mains examination about the indigenization effort, especially in the defense sector, and the Atmanirbhar Bharat. If you have to write in essay or in mains examination questions about that, answers about that, you can use this as a pointer. The next was gas emission rule. Again, very important topic. because it is directly linked to your syllabus. Climate change, you have to study in environment and biodiversity, and here also you can use this as a pointer when you're talking about India, the steps and the efforts that is made by India to ensure that we are able to fulfill our obligation as far as the Paris summit is concerned. So that is how we can understand the entire topic. So that is all about this particular week. I hope you understood all these 5 topics in detail. Go through it, and I am sure that you will be able to understand properly.